All right, my hootsters. We're on page 249, which is the start of chapter 19. I think Roy had just talked to his class about the owls, and so he's trying to, motivate people through legal channels, while Mullet Fingers obviously is not. So we'll see. So here we go. I'm worried about the owls, Officer Delenko told Curly. What owls? Darkness had fallen on the construction site and swallows were swooping back and forth chasing mosquitoes. Tomorrow was the big day. Come on, I saw them with my own eyes, the patrolman said. Isn't there a way to, move them someplace safe? Curly said, want my advice? Don't think about it. Put it out of your mind is what I would do. Well, I can't. That's the trouble. Curly jerked a thumb toward the trailer. You want to take a break? I rented the new Jackie Chan movie. Officer Delenko couldn't understand how the foreman could be so casual about burying the owl dens. He wondered if it was just a macho act. Did you tell them that the birds were out here, he asked. Tell who? The Pancake Company. Maybe they don't know. Curly snorted. You kidding me? They know everything. He said, look, it ain't our problem. Even if we wanted to, there's nothing we could do. Curly went off to his trailer while Officer Delenko resumed patrolling the grounds. Whenever he passed a burrow, he shined his flashlight inside, but he saw no owls. He hoped the birds had already sensed that something awful was about to happen and flown away, though it seemed improbable. Shortly after midnight, Officer Delenko heard Curly come out and shout his name. The foreman claimed he'd been awakened by a noise like someone climbing the fence. With his gun drawn, the policeman searched the area thoroughly. He checked the roof of the trailer and underneath it, too. All he found was a line of possum tracks in the sand. Sounded way bigger than a possum, Curly said grumpily. Later, as Officer Delenko was retrieving his third thermos of coffee from the squad car, he thought he saw a series of small white flashes at the other end of the property. It reminded him of the bright popping he'd seen at late-night car accidents while the police department's photographer was snapping pictures. But when Officer Delenko ran to where he'd seen the flashes, he found nothing out of the ordinary. Must have been a burst of heat lightning, he thought, reflecting off the low clouds. The rest of the night passed uneventfully. The patrolman stayed awake, wide awake. At breakfast, Roy asked his mother if he could leave school during lunch. He figured she'd be more likely than his father to say yes, but she surprised him. I don't know if that's a good idea for you to go to the Mother Apollo's groundbreaking, but Mom, let's see what your dad thinks. Oh well, thought Roy, that'll be the end of that. As soon as Mr. Eberhart sat down at the table, Mrs. Eberhart informed him of Roy's request. Sure, why not, Mr. Eberhart said. I'll write him a note. Roy's jaw hung open. He had expected the opposite reaction from his father. But you've got to promise to behave, Mr. Eberhart said, no matter how ticked off you get. I promise, Dad. Later, his father put Roy's bicycle in the trunk of his car and drove Roy to Trace Middle School. As he dropped him off in the front of the school, Mr. Eberhart asked, Think your friend will be at the ceremonies today? Beatrice's stepbrother? Probably, Roy said. It's pretty risky. I know, Dad. I tried to tell him. You be careful, Mr. Eberhart said firmly, and be smart. Yes, sir. Beatrice Leap was waiting outside Roy's homeroom. Her curly hair was damp as if she'd just gotten out of the shower. Well, she said, I got a note. How about you? Beatrice displayed a crumpled paper napkin that had been scrawled upon in red ink. I woke up my old man to ask him. He was so far out of it, he would have signed anything, she said. I should have written myself a check for $1,000. So I guess we're all set for noon, Roy said. He lowered his voice. I went to see your brother. He threw me out of the truck. Beatrice shrugged. What can I say? Sometimes he's impossible. She fished in her purse and came out with the camera belonging to Roy's mother. He dropped this off at the house late last night after Lana and Dad had went to bed. He says he got pictures you wanted. I tried to take a look, but I couldn't figure out how to work the darn thing. Wordlessly, Roy grabbed the camera and stashed it in his locker. Keep your fingers crossed, Beatrice said before melting into the stream of students and disappearing down the hall. Roy spent the rest of the morning a lost and excited distraction, wondering if his plan might actually work. At 10:45 a.m., a black stretch limousine pulled up outside of the empty lot at Woodbury on East Oriole. The driver got out and opened one of the doors. Nothing happened for several moments, and then a tall woman with wavy silver hair emerged, squinting into the sun. He wore pressed white trousers and a dark blue blazer with an emblem on the breast pocket. The man glanced around impatiently behind enormous tinted glasses. Crisply, he snapped his fingers at Officer David Delinko, who was unlocking his squad car. The patrolman failed to notice he was being summoned. He was knocking off work after 14 straight hours at the construction site. Curly had gone home to shower and shave, so Officer Delinko had stayed to keep an eye on the earth-moving machines, which had been refitted with new seats. Now that the foreman had returned, dressed up in a coat and tie of all things, the policeman was leaving the premises. He had no desire to hang around for the groundbreaking nonsense. "Officer," the silver-haired man beckoned insistently. "Yo, officer, over here." "Officer Delinko." "If someone called me like that, I'm just saying." Officer Delinko approached the limousine and asked what was wrong. The man introduced himself as Chuck E. Muckle, Vice President of something or another for Mother Paula's All-American Pancake House, Incorporated. In a confidential tone, he added, "We need some discreet assistance here." "Well, I'm off duty," Officer Delinko told him, "but I'd be glad to call for another unit." He was so exhausted from lack of sleep that he barely had enough energy to carry on a conversation. "Do you happen to know who's sitting in this car?" Chuck Muckle asked, nodding toward the limo. "No, sir. Miss Kimberly Lou Dixon." "Well, that's nice," said Officer Delinko blankly. "The Kimberly Lou Dixon? Well, what do you know?" Chuck Muckle thrust his ruddy face closer. "You've got no idea who I'm talking about, do you, officer?" "Not a clue, sir. Never heard of the lady." The company vice president rolled his eyes and proceeded to explain who Kimberly Lou Dixon was and why she traveled all the way from Beverly Hills, California to Coconut Cove, Florida. "And right this minute," Chuck Muckle said, "she rather urgently needs a powder room." "A powder room," Officer Delinko repeated quizzically. "A place to powder her nose, a place to freshen up." Chuck Muckle erupted in exasperation. "Is this really such a difficult concept to grasp, officer? Let me try to put this in your language so you can understand. She needs a potty, okay?" "Gotcha," Officer Delinko gestured toward Curly's trailer. "Follow me." When Kimberly Lou Dixon got out of the limousine, Officer Delinko was startled by how young she looked compared with the wrinkled old granny she played on the TV commercials. Kimberly Lou had bright green eyes and rich auburn hair and smooth milky skin, and a lovely, cultured woman, Officer Delinko thought. Then she opened her mouth. "I got a tinkle," she announced in a sandpaper voice. "Lead the way, hotshot." The actress carried a leather tote bag over one shoulder, and she wore high heels, a black skirt, and a pale silky blouse. Curly was dumbstruck when he opened the door of the trailer. Without a word, Kimberly Lou Dixon stepped past him and made her way to the bathroom. "Can I change in here?" she asked in a husky voice. "Change what? You look good, the way you are." "Change into her Mother Paula's costume," Officer Delinko interjected. "She's with some guy and he wants to know if she can use your trailer as a dressing room." "Anytime," Curly said with a smile. A man's silhouette filled the door, followed by a gust of oily cologne. "Why, you must be the one and only Leroy Brannett," growled a familiar, sarcastic voice. Curly cringed. Officer Delinko stepped out of the way and said, "This gentleman is from the Pancake House Company." "I figured," said Curly, and he held out his right hand to Chuck Muckle, who stared at it as if it were a dead mudfish. "Please tell me, Mr. Brannett, that you have no bad news that would spoil this lovely tropical morning. Tell me everything is hunky-dory here in Coconut Cove." "Yes, sir," Curly said. "We stayed the last 2 nights on the property, me and the policeman here, and it's been as peaceful as a church house. Ain't that right, David?" "Righto," Officer Delinko said. Chuck Muckle whipped off his shades and eyed the patrolman dubiously. "You wouldn't happen to be some crackerjack lawman who fell asleep in his car while the vandal trashed our survey stakes, would you?" As curious as Officer Delinko was to see Kimberly Lou Dixon dressed up in her Mother Paula uniform, he now wished that he were somewhere far, far away. "The same genius," Mr. Muckle went on, whose careless sleep habits resulted in a newspaper article that unfairly smeared the good name and reputation of Mother Paula. "Was that you?" "Yep, that would be him," Curly said. Officer Delinko shot the foreman a dirty look like that before addressing Mr. Muckle. "I'm really sorry about all that, sir," the patrolman said, thinking, "Sorrier for me than for you." "It's rather astounding that you still have a job," Chuck Muckle remarked. "Your police chief must have a charitable heart. Either that, or he's desperate for warm bodies." Curly finally came up with something positive to contribute. "Officer Delinko is the one who helped me catch that burglar the other night." It was a shameless exaggeration of Curly's role in the capture of Dana Matherson, and Officer Delinko was about to set the record straight when Kimberly Lou Dixon came rocketing out of the bathroom. You've got like a major roach situation in there, she exclaimed. Well, they ain't roaches, they're crickets, Curly said. I don't know where the heck they all come from. He elbowed his way past Officer Delinko and Chuck Muckle and introduced himself to the actress. I'm the supervising engineer on this project, Miss Dixon, and I just want you to know that I have seen all of your movies. All 2 of them, you mean? Kimberly Lou Dixon patted his shiny scalp. That's all right, Mr. Brannett. It's still a darling thing for you to say. Hey, I can't wait for your new one, too. Mutant Invaders from Saturn 11. I really go for that sci-fi stuff. Jupiter 7, Chuck Muckle cut in. It's Mutant Invaders from Jupiter 7. Whatever, Curly gushed. You're going to make a fantastic grasshopper queen. Yeah, I'm already writing my Oscar speech. The actress glanced at her diamond-studded wristwatch. Listen, I'd better hurry up and start putting myself into my adorable old mother Paula. Can one of you sweethearts fetch my suitcase out of the limo? And that is where we'll start. Stop, friends, on chapter 20, page 259. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.